Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Immersive Tech Talk podcast series presented by VRD HealthTech. I'm Sherry Marion, CEO of VRD HealthTech, and we're pleased to have our host, Professor Skip Rizzo, who will be engaging in dialogue with various experts in the digital mental health field across the course of the podcast series. Professor Rizzo will interview today's amazing guest, an innovator of immersive technology and media, Lance Loesberg. Before we start the discussion, let me introduce you to VRD HealthTech. VRD HealthTech is an accelerator for the adoption of immersive technology by partnering with emerging application creators to market, sell, onboard, and train users in health and wellness solutions. We offer these applications to the hospitals, clinics, educators, and corporations to benefit their patients, students, clients, and their community. VRD is proud to have the support and guidance from experts in virtual reality, such as our host, Professor Skip Rizzo. Skip Rizzo is a professor at USC and director of medical virtual reality. He serves as an advisor and chief science officer for our partner, Cognitive Leap, exploring methods to address attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD, in children. Our guest today is Lance Loesberg, founder and CEO of BigLook360, based in Dallas, Texas. Lance's achievements include launching the world's first commercial immersive VR 360-degree video application in 1999. He spearheaded the production of the first multi-camera 360-degree VR live stream at the Academy Awards and led the inaugural VR production at an NBA All-Star game. As a creator of the Total View camera system, TCAM, Loesberg has also developed groundbreaking VR applications, such as IntegroVR for brain injury rehabilitation, Pro41 VR for athletic training, and Pro 360, an online spherical video mapping solution. He has continued to lead and executive produce VR content and solutions used for experiential marketing, training, entertainment, healthcare, sports, promotion, tourism, and geomapping. He's responsible for hundreds of VR titles and content productions for companies such as AT&T, Verizon, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Walmart, BMW, Ford, Pfizer, Alcoa, NBA, MLB, ABC, CBS, Dallas Cowboys, and many other companies, including the 360-degree VR live streaming of several other major events. Prior to founding BigLook360, Loesberg was a co-founder and executive director of San Diego-based Decision Sciences Corporation. He was instrumental in the development of DSC, with its core focus of developing 21st century technology to detect potential nuclear threats and counterterrorism. Under the direction of Homeland Security, DSC has deployed and installed its container and content cosmic particle technology detection system worldwide. Loesberg's career has included service as North American Director for VR Pioneer Virtuality, Executive Vice President and Board Member for publicly traded Virtra Systems, and co-owner and President of National Food Products, Inc. So let's go ahead now and turn it over to Skip and Lance.
All righty. Well, welcome everyone to this edition of Immersive Tech Talk. And as always, this is more fun than work for me because I get to talk to all my friends and colleagues from over the years in VR and have a deep dive discussion on all the different cool stuff that's been happening over the years. Now, when it comes to Lance, we've known each other, 20, 23, 24 years. I think we met cyber therapy conference in San Diego way back in the day. And what impressed me was that here was a guy that understood the technology as well as the application areas. And he was doing some really cool stuff with spherical video, which continues to this day, but it was way ahead of its time. And that was really engaging. And in a little bit, we'll talk about some of that early work, particularly the idea of maybe using it for PTSD exposure therapy and so on. There was some really cool things that were possible even, back in the early 2000s. So with that, my good friend and colleague now, Lance, do you want to tell us a little bit about how you got involved in this area, and we'll take it from there. Oh, you're on mute.
I'm here now.
All right.
I didn't follow Sherry's directions too well, did I? For starters, Kristen's. Anyway, yeah, Skip. I mean, I guess when we met in the early 2000s, I was impressed when I met you that there's very few people in the world that I could actually talk about the technology that knew what I was talking about, and you understood it more than probably I did at the time. I don't know, and applications and things. But yeah, just this concept of virtual reality going back from for me, it was in the early 90s when I got started and heard about it, and then just the light went off and said, I got to get involved. I got to figure this out. There's so many applications that I could see the technology be applied to. And just trying to figure out, okay, now how do you create a business from this? And how do you maintain it? How do you generate revenues? And then where does it take you? How do you go from there? So,
What blew me away was that in this 2002, three, whatever it was, you telling me that 10 years before you had worked with one of the first commercial VR companies out there, Virtuality.
right.
And you had built one of my first virtual experiences, Dactyl's Nightmare, which was a big arcade type VR application where you competed against someone else, and there was this dragon flying around that you had to watch out you didn't get scooped up by, and you had to shoot at each other. I mean, I think I have a video, and I wish I had had it queued up of the early days with that, the race car version. And I've got a clip somewhere of the British royalty
Mhm.
trying it out on some
Right.
TV show.
Yeah.
But I mean, what was it like back? I mean, early 90s. This was before most people.
Yeah, I'd say it was I think it was like 91 or 92 when I first got introduced to them. They had just opened up their North American offices in Dallas, where I'm located. And I was consulting for somebody that I just met and introduced me to virtual reality, which I didn't really know what it was at the time, who was writing code in the black areas of the Department of Defense. And after a certain period of time, the Department of Defense says the code that he had written was no longer deemed an international threat, and he could market it or figure out what he wanted to do with it. And he had no idea. So I helped him out, and I stumbled onto virtuality just at that. The timing was just coincidental, and introduced him to the people at virtuality and said, "Look, his code is going to help you be able to write games better, quicker, and more efficiently." Negotiated an agreement between them, and they were looking for people to come work for them for the New York the North American offices, and asked me if I'd join. I said, yeah, absolutely. I want to get involved with this in some shape, form, or another. And that's kind of where it started. And they were based out of England, the UK, and that's where all the games and pretty much all the everything was written and stuff manufactured. And we brought the parts over to North America and distributed from there, and grew it at pretty substantially. Unfortunately, over the next several years, they're publicly traded on the London Stock Exchange, and they ran into a lot of trouble and ended up liquidating the company more or less. And from there, I moved on and eventually forming my own company after some other ventures along the way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, back then there was so much hype around VR. I mean, we all thought it was going to be, where it's at now, but in 1995.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, what could you see when you were working with virtuality that I don't see a business model here, or the technology is not going to be maintained, or not going to grow, or the public's not going to adopt it?
Yeah, the all the systems, pretty much all the systems they were sold were attractions, and everybody who was trying to use them to make money with them were struggling to generate revenues. You had to pay $5 for a game. The units were selling anywhere from $40,000 to $60,000 a pod. The headset and the unit and everything else. So it was hard to get a return on the investment depending on the location. So they always targeted high traffic locations like malls, casinos, and things like that. So I recognize unless you could justify a return on the investment for the customer, it was a hard sell. It was a very difficult sell. Now, like the MGM Grand had like, I think 8 or 12 that we sold to them, but it was an attraction for them because people were gambling, and everything else, and getting people in the door, that was a big draw. But for others, it was very difficult. I knew over time the technology would catch up, slowly, and things would get better. A lot of, things broke down, and it was a lot of challenging, and these, you can imagine back then, all this heavily data, these games that were in this 360 environment, and with the hardware that was available at the time, processors, graphics cards, you name it, it was very, very much a struggle. And over time, everything was slowly catching up. So, but the bug had hit me, and I could just envision it somewhere down the line when the technology caught up, that and the applications were right for other markets and other disciplines, that there is a potential business out of this. And it was just a matter of finding the right groove. And what really broke loose for me was in the late 90s, at a trade show, for one of the ad agencies for General Motors came up to me, and at the time everything was animation, and they said, "Look, we want to do a virtual reality test drive, but we don't." They said their words, "We don't want cartoons, right? So
Right.
we want it to be real." And I said, "Well, it didn't exist at the time." And fortunately for me, I had some people that I knew very well that were in the film industry, and they were doing a lot of music videos and commercials and things like that were very tech savvy. And so we sat down, and I was telling them about this problem, and saying that, look, if we can figure out a way to do this, we can create the film, but in 360 degrees. I think I can sell it. I think we can find a way to make it work. And through those guys and some, pretty intelligent software engineers at the time, we theoretically figured out a way that we could take, using film, a 360-degree panoramic image, and create this video that they were looking to do. So I went back to the agency. They flew me up to Detroit, met with the executives at General Motors, and pitched this concept. And they said, "Well, yeah, we like it. Well, how much is it, and how long is it going to take?" And I said, "I'll have to get back to you."
You didn't think you were going to get a yes right out of the gate.
Yeah. So I sat down with the team. I said, "Look, guys, we need some numbers. I need time, and I need, dollars, and we got to sit this thing out. We got to figure this thing out." And man, we crunched and crunched and crunched, and through a lot of hard work with a lot of smart people, we pulled it together, and we were able to do like a quick demo, and they loved it, and they said, "Let's do it." And next thing you know, we're out around the country. We're shooting 360-degree panoramic, video. At the time, it's frame by frame, hand stitching and manually stitching, all that kind of stuff, and color correcting, editing, all those things. Took forever. I mean, we had guys. I mean, one of our main guys I work with, even still to this day, disappeared for days at a time. He was like working 24/7, and he'd come up for air every now and again. And so what they ended up doing, they outfitted, I think it was 3 tractor trailers, and we took actual car seats from the car, and they created like a theater on these tractor trailers, and we embedded all the components underneath the seat. And we had like the headsets that we had to like modify with back those days to make it more ruggedized. And we actually put base shakers under the seats too. So when you hit a bump, you would actually shake. Scent to smell. So when you drove through the city of New York and somebody's roasting nuts on the side, you smell the nuts. You go through the mountains in Colorado, you smell the trees, the evergreen. You go down the Pacific Coast Highway, you smell the ocean. So we had all this. We animated rain. So windshield wipers, automatic windshield wipers came up. And, and it was so successful, Skip, on that first year that they deployed this around the country, that they were tracking people who took the VR ride, went to dealerships and actually bought a car. And they renewed it for 5 years.
Wow.
Same thing for 5 years. And that was like the start. And that was the very first commercial 360 video ever, 1998, 99, when we launched.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, going from virtuality to something like that, and also going from 3D graphic based VR to what we could do with cameras back in the day.
Right.
Of course, we can do it now much better, much faster and cheaper. Like when I'm hearing you talk about this guy disappearing for days to process all this footage. I think about what we had done work like this around 2000, 2001 at USC. We had a full view camera, a
Oh,
five
yeah.
camera rig, and we had a really smart graduate student built his own software to be able to stitch it together, time code it, color correct. And this is from digital, digital recordings
Right.
to, I mean, it was a nightmare because nobody realizes when you're stitching film together, you've got to get it right. You got to get it to match, even if the sun is coming from over here to there. And it's a real job.
And you're not even
We
and you're not even mentioning, Skip, the crashes. The computer would crash because the graphic is so heavy they couldn't process. So, you'd spend hours and hours on working on something. All of a sudden, it would just get a crash. Oh, I got to start all over again. That would happen over and over again.
Well, you were able to go from that then to building out a company that survived, the VR company that survived for over 20 years, 25 years. Um, you know, what do you attribute that to? Is it the advances in the technology, the fact we have better cameras, better software? What's
It's a little bit of everything, as you mentioned. But my approach, because I have a business background, I had to think of it as running a business first. I had to think of whatever we do, if it's whatever we produce, whatever we create, wherever we go, is that we got to figure out a way to monetize it. And that entailed knowing or figuring out how is the customer going to get a return on their investment, whether it's revenue based, or if it's marketing, if it's eyeballs, or or throughput, or whatever it may be. So it was always trying to look down from a business aspect, and then instead of creating the technology or something that's really cool and say, okay, now I'm going to go out and try to sell it, is okay, let me figure out first where the need is and the market is, and then create and make it fit into that realm. And that seemed to have worked. And to this day, I still kind of, you have to look at it from that angle. But you bring something up too, because I got to give you credit, is you were responsible for us creating, as far as I know, and this is when we first met, you said to me, you said, is we did some simulation of a military uh
the
Humvee.
training site?
Yeah, the training site, right? And it's simulating like an Afghanistani village type of a thing. And so and during that I showed it to you and go, it'd be so cool if you get a helicopter that would fly over as you're in the Humvee going through. And we went back and we actually then animated that helicopter, and that was like hadn't been done before either. And providing animation into a 360 video. And you're responsible for that idea, and we were able to pull that off, and that actually led to then from doing that to branching, to hotspots and branching. So, and nobody was doing that at the time.
Yeah, that was, I mean, I was blown away. This was at a point when we were thinking about, okay, we're going to have to build out all these worlds for the PTSD app. And, it's a big lift with all the variety of content you needed for, an Afghan village or an Iraqi marketplace
Mm-hmm.
or an industrial area. What if we could get spherical video and capture enough of that, but then still be able to trigger stimuli to pop up like the helicopter? And you did that. I had that running on my laptop actually. Um, and I still have that laptop tucked away because I think it was running on Windows XP or even before
For
that, it might have been
that.
Windows 2000. And it was like I gotta keep this laptop because someday this is gonna be a museum piece that we have this. But I remember you also had footage from Iraq and Afghanistan that some military contractor had captured on roadways. It was really impressive, and it really opened my eyes that we weren't just locked into the spherical video. We could paste in 3D graphics. We could do the branching, and this could become a functional technology that we could apply in mental health and in storytelling and narratives.
Yeah.
But this is the thing. What is the deal with immersive narrative now? How come we've seen a couple of things come up? I'm forgetting the name there was a series about a guy that had been frozen. He was cryogenically frozen, and they woke him up 35 years ago when they had a cure for his disease, and the television series was around that. But it was a head mount display thing. I mean, why haven't we seen more of this immersive narrative? Are we going to see more in the future or?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a matter of time, before it comes down, and it's kind of like, if it's storytelling kind of thing, for the consumer, industry, the basic consumer. I mean, there's have to have the market. So there's slowly they're getting enough headsets out in the world where content can be monetized. So just like the movie theaters, you can make a movie, but if you had one theater to show in it, you're not going to get any return on that investment. So
Right.
it's as more devices are out there to be able to play the story, I think you'll see it more and more. And I think it's, I mean, if you go into, YouTube 360 or some of these other sites, where they have immersive or 360 or even now 180 content.
Yeah.
There's more and more out there, and people are playing with it, they're tinkering with it, and more, people are getting involved and trying to figure out, okay, what's a good compelling story? How can I get, people really into this whole thing? And that's always been, kind of my philosophy too in the beginning, is like, there's so many people to come. I got a great idea for virtual reality. We're going to do this, this, and this. And I go, okay, that's great. On a flat screen, it says, what purpose do you have to turn around, look behind you, or to your left, your right, or up or down? And they go, well, not really. I said, well, why do you need virtual reality? Just pay more money for something you're not going to use, that real estate you're not going to use. So it's that approach too, is that it's got to utilize or have a reason to utilize that environment that you're in, as opposed to just being what everybody traditionally is looking at as a flat screen, whether it be the movie theater or on TV at home.
Well, I can think of a use case for VR with spherical video, and you did this around, I think it was 2008. You took a camera and sacrificed it in the demolition of the Dallas football stadium. You put the camera in the middle of the stadium when they demolished it. And that's an experience that they can't ever get. You can never be in the middle of a demolition, but as long as that camera before it got hit by a beam, captured it, it was like, oh man, this is what it's like when these things come in. I mean, well, how did that ever come about? And what did that camera cost you?
Well, when I heard about the stadium being demolished, a light bulb went off my head. I said, how can we record this thing, but from a perspective that no human being could be in? And of course, if anybody's familiar with that old stadium, it was a stadium with the roof had a hole in it, basically the size of the football field. Otherwise, it's totally enclosed. And so the idea was, okay, maybe we can put a camera, 360 camera in the middle of this thing as it's being blown up. And I had a good relationship with a company that made one of the first 360 video cameras, Immersive Media, back at that time. And it did some favors. They did me some favors. And one of them was like, okay, I need a camera for this. And we'd figure out how to monetize it once it was out there. And actually the YouTube video got like over 1 million views on that thing even back then. But we streamed it live as well. So people could
Yeah, right.
Right. And the challenging part was talking to the demolition expert, the guy that owned the company. He was like, can you tell me how this stadium is going to collapse? Because I want to figure out where's the best place to put the camera. And he says, well, there's no other stadium in the world like this, and we've never done anything, such as this. So we're speculating we're going to set the dynamite charges off on this end, and it's going to go around and finish off in the back end. And I said, that's it? And he goes, that's it. So I'm going, okay, well, and he says, you know what? It doesn't matter, because there's going to be so much dust and dirt and debris that you're not going to be able to see anything anyway. And I said, well, we're going to take our chances. And so strategically found a spot that I thought would be best to put, which would be equivalent like a 20-yard line. And there was big steel girders too that crossed over that roof as well, as I didn't want to try to last as much as we could before it got totally demolished. And the other part was just stepping over dynamite charges, because we had to go in there after everything was in there at the last minute to put the camera. It's the only access we had, which was a little bit dangerous, but
Keep your hands off the button, guys.
Yeah. He was yelling at us, don't you trip one of my wires, it's going to screw up the whole blast. And sure enough, to this day, it's one of my most favorite. I mean, primarily because all the hoops I had to go through, the bureaucracy of the city, getting permission, all that kind of stuff. But it'll never be done again, at least not that type of stadium, because there isn't any.
Right.
It was a once in a lifetime shot, and we only had one chance to do it. There's no like do a take, let's do a take and try it again. It was once
Yeah.
and it came off great.
Yeah.
It's so compelling today, even with a standard definition 360 camera, which imagine that.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
standard. Yeah.
Well, capturing things like that, once in a lifetime events or historical documentation. We fought like hell to get our full view camera into 9/11 after the attack and everything.
Mhm.
And we got total pushback from the Office of Emergency Management from NYC because they looked at it like this is a burial site and this is a sacred site. There's so many remains of so many dead people. We want to preserve the integrity of it. And I go, how better to preserve the integrity,
Right.
but to capture what it looked like at different stages of the cleanup,
Yeah.
and to move the camera around to different locations so people 100 years from now can, activate their retinal stimulators and
Mhm.
get a feeling of what it was like to be there at that time. It was a lost opportunity, but some guy from the FBI brought a spherical some kind of a handheld camera, but it was a still image, and I have that.
Oh, really?
uh, I have an image of it. Nothing, it doesn't run on a headset. Well, I haven't converted it to run on a headset, but I can scroll around on my laptop and look around and see from one vantage point. It was just like in and out. um,
Yeah. See, I'm sure you've run into other barriers like I have too as well, with some really phenomenal concept ideas, that things that we could have done, but people just didn't understand it. They don't understand 360 video. They don't understand the concept. They don't understand what the future was. And it was, to them, it was just more of a pain or just inconvenience at the time. Something they didn't want to have to deal with or worry about. Um,
yeah, yeah.
just didn't understand it, but how
You,
valuable it would be today.
you did a NBA thing. Were they hard to work with?
Yes. Imagine an organization that is top loaded with attorneys.
There you
Any
go.
reason not to do that? Any reason not to put your camera on the scorer's table? Any reason not to put it underneath the basket or behind the rim, behind the backboard or something like that? Risk of injury, blocking somebody's view, whatever. I mean, yeah, it was a very difficult project to do, and limited access as well. But it turned out pretty good. We did quite a few different. That was back when Samsung was developing the Gear VR headset. If you remember that, we snapped the phone into.
Yep.
We kind of consulted a little bit with them on that. Just as providing content and some of the ergonomic stuff. But to me, that was a huge step. Is it like the first standalone headset, not
Right.
tethered to a computer? It was
Yeah.
awesome that they
I
did.
think yeah,
Yeah,
it was really a
yeah,
major,
yeah.
major advance forward.
We
It was
produced
only,
a
what,
lot of content for them when they launched.
10 years ago. God.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, uh,
It doesn't seem like.
yeah. We actually put our camera on the sidelines of a USC football game, about 10 feet from the sidelines. And
Right.
so we managed from that one vantage point. We couldn't move around. There was so much equipment. So we had to plant it. We shot a whole game. And we rapidly realized, well, maybe 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 a
Much better for
regular.
basketball.
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
Well, hey,
proximity is, for those cameras, that's the name of the game. You got to be up close and personal. You got to be up close. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Well, all right. Now let's talk about something more current. So you got all this history.
Mhm.
Now you're working with this company, Bioness, and creating content that derives from a lot of your spherical content for a variety of rehab and cognitive training, a whole variety of areas. So how did that come about, and what's happening in that area?
Well, it initially stemmed from a partner that I was working with for another project for training athletes, and he was a former Dallas Cowboy football player. Experienced a lot of concussions and injuries over his 14-year career. And what dawned on me at that time, this is probably what 7 6 7 years ago, whatever. Also, the NFL was having lawsuits about players that were having concussions or TBI and things like that. And I thought, well, what a good idea. What could we figure out an application for the assessment of somebody coming off the field with a concussion, whether or not they're viable to go back into play. And after researching that a little bit, and we can figure out the way to do it with consulting with the proper physicians and authority, that knew about concussions and treatments and assessments and things like that. The liability if somebody made a mistake and said, yeah, you're good to go back in, and then seriously injured, flipped it over to more rehabilitation. And through an old friend I was introduced to, a former employee of Bioness, who just happened to be extremely knowledgeable and a doctor of physical therapy. And he consulted with him, and he was a tremendous value from that perspective, and introduced me to Bioness. And Bioness has such a good reputation. They're just an outstanding company with great people, very knowledgeable, smart, and just passionate about what they're doing. And to me, it was just a good match to say, okay, let's take this application, let's build on it. What do you need, or what do you think would be good for the type of rehabilitation that you're doing? And we kind of went down the spectrum of these different concepts. What they really liked that was unique from what anyone else is doing really was providing this spherical video environments to take people into where they couldn't take them from the clinic into a grocery store, or into a restaurant, or at home, whatever it may be, and then creating it more functional through branching hotspots, more interactive in that regard too. But from a therapist's chair, they could take them to a multitude of different environments to see how they react and behave, and also to see how they're progressing as well. And that also, we converted some of their existing flat screen programs, therapeutic programs, into a virtual reality environment as well. And then we added augmented or mixed reality programs to that as well. So now we have one seamless application that can do all three modalities, mixed reality, virtual reality animation, 360 videos, interactive, non-interactive, with basically in one application seamlessly, which hadn't been done to my knowledge this time. So that's been great. And that's kind of where that came from.
Well, I know they have a bunch of other products aside from the
Yeah.
VR. And one of them I think is well matched to this, is this device. It's like a safety harness, but it's really like on steroids, a Vector, I think it's called. Was it hard to integrate content with those kinds of things, or some of their robotic stuff?
Yeah. Well, yeah, you know as well as I do, Skip, but with a headset that's standalone, and depending on the content, you can adapt it to so many different, types of things, products or environments or whatever. So it was kind of just a natural thought. If you're in a harness, and you've seen some, and mostly been animated, you're standing on a girder on a building, and you want to get somebody's balance or fear of heights or whatever it may be. But if they're in a harness, you have that safety factor. You can still provide those environments and see how they react or behave, or if they're walking, those kinds of things. The Vector, that harness one is called the Vector, allows them to walk. So that way you can actually walk with the headset on and be in any environment you want to create, or in a mixed reality world, the pass through. So they're still in the clinic, but you embed these objects within that world. So, to me, it's like, what's the best way to extend this platform that we've developed to not just a headset, but also to integrate seamlessly with other products that they have, and kind of optimize that for not only Bioness, but also for their customers and client base.
One of the criticisms with doing physical therapy with VR is, it's really good for range of motion, eye-hand coordination, bimanual coordination, but you don't get the haptic feedback. But I saw at a recent conference where they had a booth set up, and they've developed sort of a robotic arm application that allows them to provide forces, or to make it more realistic. Are any of your applications running with that type of device?
Yeah, actually, we even using some of the existing applications that we've already developed with them, will interface seamlessly with that that as well. I think they call it the Aura. It's and it's like you said, it's robotics. So it's primarily shoulder arm movement kind of a thing. So it still has application there, along with, it's easily developed. We can easily develop additional programs that would be specific to that piece of hardware as well. So whether it's the Vector, the harness one, or the Aura, that robotic one, and they have some other products too that we look to be able to integrate with across the board for everything.
Well, there's been a number of companies, there still are a number of companies that are producing this kind of content. What do you see an advantage with using spherical and partnering with this particular company on developing this type of content? Because, Penumbra, they put a good shot into it. They mainly rely, well, they had some spherical content, but they mainly relied on 3D graphic stuff. Where do you see this going? Is this going to be a success story?
Well, for me, it all starts from ease of use, and that goes back to the 90s and everything. So is when somebody puts on that headset, they don't have to sit there, and doesn't have to be go through a routine of configuration, or press or select different buttons, options, all those kinds of things. The same with whoever with in this case the clinician, or anybody that's working with the person in the headset doesn't have to do 10 different things to set up, or take time to set it up. So it's more instantaneous. So simplicity from the user interface and from setting it up is number one. If it's not easy, and if it's time consuming to get it to use, I think you lost the battle from the start. I think that's where Penumbra failed in the beginning. And that's something that, having experience for years and years, even in theme parks where we had virtual reality zones and putting through hundreds and hundreds of people, through systems, we learned all these kinds of things, not to mention the ergonomics, right? So everybody has to adjust the headset, their eyes, and there's so many other variables that can do it. So make it simple, so when they put that headset off, they're off and running. And that's like the key element, I feel. And then along with that is what we developed, which is this seamless application that you can utilize the different modalities of mixed reality and virtual reality. It's animation, 360 video, interactive or non-interactive, without having to exit the application and go into another application, or changing a headset to an AR headset to a virtual reality headset, or where it may be. A lot of them are starting to have that capability now, but not have doing it all in one package. BionS has adopted that. They understand it, and they're passionate about the technology as well, of what they see is helping patients. And I think that's their main drivers. What is the best way we can help the patient, and working that way back up through development. And I love that idea. I think it's great. I think that's a win-win for everybody. If it doesn't work for the patient, doesn't work for the clinician, don't work for the clinician, doesn't work for BionS, nobody's going to sell it. We're not in business. So again, it all comes down to the business model for me.
Right. Well, the primary market for them right now is with clinics, or with clinicians there in the loop. What about moving towards more home-based stuff? Because that's the gold standard, if you will. Can you move as much rehab safely into the home? Are they looking in that direction? Are you looking in that direction?
Absolutely. And it's already started, and I think you'll be hearing something pretty soon. Yeah.
Oh,
And
cool.
and back to the same factors. It's got to be easy to use, and somebody taking it home unsupervised has never done VR before. They can't fail. It's got to work. It's got to work out of the box.
Right, right. There are some companies that are doing this with mail order headsets, where it's like the Gear VR, where they can use their own phone, they can download stuff, and they do this for phobia stuff. The company out of New Zealand, I believe, where they actually mail the frame, like the Gear VR frame. They can pop their own phone in there after they've downloaded software, and do this kind of self-exposure therapy, or helping them to confront their fears, for everyday fears. with a clinician that keeps up with them on the phone and stuff. I think that there's a number of a lot of groups that are experimenting with, can we safely do this at home and at what level?
Right. Right. Yeah. I'm not an expert in that field. You know much better than I do from the therapeutic side, and that kind of a thing. But from the development side and from the application and deployment side, I think we have a pretty good handle on that. And working with even Bioness, that does have products that people do take home already. I think we have a good head start on that as well. And it's knowing your customer base, and being able to devise the right product and content, for them, to make it all work. And if it involves or, includes that therapist being able to communicate or be inside that VR headset with somebody at home, that as well is part of it.
Right. Right. I think that's an important feature as well, having the clinician be able to pop up into the headset. That was one thing that Penumbra had gotten right, actually. They had a feature, they called it the Connect feature, and a clinician could observe what the patient was seeing in the
Right.
environment from their laptop, but also pop up in a little window. And I'm surprised I don't see a lot more of that happening, to try to make it so at least you've got somebody there that sees what you're experiencing and can coach you or can talk you down or give you encouragement and so on. I think
It
there's a
takes a
lot of
lot of
value.
it takes a lot of resources, behind it, to make it all come together, because there's a lot of different variables that have to work seamlessly. I mean, either as simple as, how does somebody at home get onto the internet, with their device? So that alone could be a challenge, right?
Right,
You got the internet, then nothing works for them unless they're using it as a standalone device,
right.
without it. But so there's all these different variables that come into play, and for us, that's why this 25 years experience has been so valuable, because we've seen these challenges as they've, before they've happened, right? And kind of had to live with them and figure ways around them, and continuously try and figure ways around them. And that's always, that's to me is kind of the fun part too. When somebody says, well, it can't be done, or it's never been done before, or, how do we do it? Then that's when we put our hats on and go charging. That's the fun part.
Yeah, yeah, right. Well, look, you from the vantage point of being in business, myself from the vantage point of academia, we both have a unique perspective. What do you think now from the business side? What has the current state of VR arrived at? What has it gotten right and what has it gotten wrong? I mean, where are we from your vantage point?
Yeah. I think it's been this ever evolving, technology. I don't think we're anywhere close to the end or to where it's finally evolved. If you think about it, we went from black and white TV to color TV to standard to high definition 4K. It's the same with the content, at least it's from the video side that we specialize. We do so much of. The animation side, there's great game companies, out there that create, phenomenal games and things like that. And they just get better and better as well. And it comes in hand with the hardware and the processors, the graphics cards, the chips, everything else that's involved. So, and now with AI, I mean, I think we just took another big jump, right? And capabilities and what can be done. So I really honestly, I don't, to me, it's like maybe 25% of where we're going to be even 5 years from now, what we're doing and capabilities of. I think it's going to be that fast evolution, especially with AI coming into play. It's really going to accelerate everything that we've done for 20 years.
I was going to ask you about that. There's always the back and forth, people that think AI is the worst thing that ever happened, and people that fall in love with it. Where are you on that spectrum, and how do you see it affecting your work moving forward?
Well, I think pretty much like any company or people, the productivity just goes multiples I can't even say. And it's application generic, right? So or industry generic, so it can be applied just about everything. So I think it's phenomenal. And like anything else with technology, there's going to be bad characters out there trying to do bad things with it. And I think it's just you have to be smart about it, and I think you have to, try to put whatever controls in place that you can. But for the better of all good, I think it's phenomenal. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay, two questions I
What about you?
always
What about
ask.
you? What do you think
Uh,
from the academia side?
well, I'm this isn't about me. But no, actually, I'm a big fan for all the reasons you've said, the productivity stuff. But I also believe that now we can have conversational AI agents that can fill in gaps when clinicians aren't available. But you've got to have those safeguards. You've
Yeah.
got to be able to vet all the content that's being leveraged in the interaction. But I can see a time when people are doing home-based physical therapy, and in real time, the AI is analyzing the movement and giving the user tips or strategically placing stimuli in locations that are going to push or drive or encourage
Yeah.
their use. I mean, I think it's already kind of being done in some ways in bits and pieces, but we got to take small steps and make sure we can do it ethically and professionally. So I believe that the interaction element of AI is going to be really powerful. As much as you hear all the horror stories and everything. Um, I think people that have a driver in front in terms of you know delivering content ethically and professionally are going to be able to take this and make it work for us. So I'm pretty favorable about it, with keeping a cautious eye as well. So, all right, real quick, I got two questions for you.
Oh.
One question: if you had unlimited resources in 2 years to build anything in VR, what would that be?
Ooh. Let's see. You know, I wish I had prep for this question. I got to think about a year on different things. I think to me, it would be have this almost like a time capsule, but it'd be like a geographical capsule, right? I don't have to necessarily go back in time, but I'd like to be able to just pop in anywhere in the world when I wanted to, whether it's a live event or something might just be a historical site or whatever, without having to get on a plane for 12 hours or 14 hours or whatever it may be, or then spend, whatever, at least to get that experience. I think that's one thing. The other thing is, and this is what really I said earlier, the light bulb went off my head about virtual realities, that when I was 18, I had an injury. I broke my neck, and I was kind of confined where I couldn't get in supposed to get in a car. All I could do is walk from here to here. I couldn't sleep. All this things, a lot of pain and aggravation. If I had known back then there was a way to give me 5 minutes of my day to escape the reality that I was in, I would have given anything for it. And that's what's great about today, whether it's in senior homes or if it's people who are bedridden or whatever it may be. If you can get that 5 minute a day escapism from your life, if you're in a miserable place, to me that is like the ultimate. I haven't personally, wish I had experienced it, but you know what I mean, to
Yeah,
go through
right.
that kind of experience. So that I think would be the ultimate, if to give anybody that access to, I need 5 minutes to just get into a different life that I'm in right now and see something brighter on the other side.
I like that one. All right. I guess we're at the end of our time here.
Well, I think now it's time to open it up for some questions and answers. So for those of the participants joining from the webinar, just a reminder that you can directly ask a question through the Q&A window, while participants from the YouTube live stream can also ask questions in the live chat. So I don't see any questions that have come up yet, but Lance, let me ask you a question. You've really accomplished an amazing amount. I mean, so much. What do you consider to be your greatest accomplishment, or is the best yet to come?
Another one you need some prep for.
I'll just say the best is yet to come, Sherry. How's that?
Okay. I know that wasn't
Yeah.
quite a fair question, was it? Was it?
Well,
Um,
the demolition of the Dallas Stadium, that's up there.
That is definitely up there. Also, we I was able to get a 360 camera on the launch pad of the final Atlantis shuttle launch, and that was the magnitude of what I had to go through just to get access and make that happen was another one. And plus, being at the VAB, experiencing a shuttle launch, that was
Yeah.
a lifetime experience. That I'd say that was really cool too. But we've been just so fortunate to do these projects around the world. I guess whether because we were the only company or the best company, I don't know, to be able to make these things work. It just there's a lot as far as I'm concerned that we've had. It's just been great experiences.
was there
Well, how
something
long
that
did
you
that
wanted to
camera?
do that you weren't able to do, or that you weren't able to overcome the challenge to do it?
Um, there's let's see. It's there's been a lot of really cool ideas and concepts that didn't come to fruition. Primarily was, it was a budget related thing with the client, or it just didn't translate for what they were going to do. Um, Although we've done experience in Africa and went to an African village where people had never even seen themselves, a mirror. I took a photo. They went crazy. I took a photo of themselves. But a safari would be cool, like everything else. And we've gone through all these different scenarios of what would be cool stuff. A lot of people have done them already now. But just different places, Antarctica, maybe an exploration type of a thing. Yeah, I could go on and on, really. There's stuff that I'd like to be able to do at some point. Um,
Well, I do have a question here from one of the participants saying, do you think smart glasses will have a significant impact on mainstream adoption of XR technology?
I certainly do. I think there's a lot more application for the glasses in a augmented reality application, just because it could be used for so much. I mean, to be able to look at an engine and do repairs and have all these parts come to life, or somebody that's in a factory, and looking at the equipment, or you're just walking on down a street and to look at the buildings or the signage and things like that and have some recognition points of reference and things. Yeah, I think it definitely will be. Plus, they're going to be a lot less costly than a all-inclusive kind of a VR headset to this day. More fashionable for sure, less obtrusive for people to wear. I think that's a big part of it. So it's just a matter of what the applications are that can be utilized with those glasses. But I think it's definitely more of a consumer uh, type thing to take, to make tracks, and an enterprise too, for that matter, I guess I should say.
So
I'd like
Skip,
to
what
do an
about your
AR.
thoughts? Yeah, on that.
Yeah, I'd like to do an AR app that I call augmented morality. And what that is you go into a mall and you look at a logo for a company, that you're going to maybe buy something from, and up pops up its carbon footprint, its donations to different political entities, its pro-social profile, donations, all that. And so then people can guide their buying decisions based on what they consider to be their ethical values and how those companies fulfill those or come close to those values. So maybe we can take back some of the reins of power by people. They say people vote with their dollars. Maybe this is a way to make that a reality.
I love that idea. I think
Sure, it's coming.
that's a
Sure,
great
it's
idea. You guys should work on that.
So
Put that on the list.
get us the customers, and we'll put it together.
Okay. You really have a great mind for monetizing. The business aspects of it, Lance. I love that. I love that view of the world. I think so many times we have people who are just intrigued with the technology, but they don't know what to do with it, in terms of how to make it into a true business. But it sounds like um, you think about the business first.
Yeah, sure. I'd come walk across, the desk of a software engineer who'd been working on this program and say, check this out. This is so cool. And it would be awesome. It'd be so great. And I'd say, okay, this is great. Now tell me how somebody's going to be able to use this and how they're going to get a return on the investment by paying us to use it. And it always the blank, came out. I said, but if you can tweak this, if you can do this and do this, I think we have a product that we can sell, or we can find a customer for this type of a product. Then you have something. And that's kind of how we kind of built it, from that perspective. Because there's some very talented people out there who can do some awesome. But a little bit
I think more people need to listen to you and follow your example.
In some things.
Oh, Skip. All right. Well, it looks like we're nearing the close here, so I want to say thank you again so much for to our audience for joining this episode of Immersive Tech Talk. I hope you've enjoyed our amazing guest today as much as I have. Thank you, Lance Loesberg, and thank you again to our host, Skip Rizzo.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
We loved having you. Thank you so much. For our audience, the video recordings of this event will be available on our YouTube channel, so please feel free to share it with anyone who might be interested in the topic. We look forward to seeing you again at our next event and hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks again.